I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome all to meeting number 38 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Finance. Pursuant to the committee's motion adopted on Friday, February 5th, 2021, the committee is meeting to study all aspects of COVID-19 spending, programs, and related monetary policy. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of January 25, and therefore members are attending in person in the room and remotely using the Zoom application. The proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website, so that witnesses are aware, the person speaking rather than the entirety of the committee will be what is shown on screen. And as is the rules of the Parliament, we ask that no screenshots or taking photos of the screen be taken. So with that, and I'm getting a little air in my ear. I don't know if anybody else is. Mr. Clerk, are you hearing it there? I see some other heads shaking. It's just like a sea breeze.
It's like static.
Yeah.
Wayne, it sounds like you got your bedroom window open there.
Yeah, no, I'm in the office.
IT is advised, and they are looking into it right now.
Okay. So we'll wait on the first witness, and first witness is going to be Mr. Cameron from Acorn Canada. Did you get the sound figured out there for you, Blaine? I know they were having a problem earlier. So we'll wait to start.
I believe so.
Okay, great. No, you're coming through to me, Claire. There, sounds good now.
Okay,
Clerk?
excellent.
Okay, there we go. Okay, then we will start. And if witnesses could hold their opening remarks to about 5 minutes, that would give us more time for questions. And we'll start with Mr. Cameron, who's a member for Acorn Canada. So Blaine, the floor is yours, and welcome. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Honorable Member. My name is Blaine Cameron. I'm the chair of the Ottawa Centre chapter of Acorn Canada. We're a national, independent, membership-based organization of low and moderate income people. We're a community union with 140,000 members in 9 cities across the country.
I don't want to interrupt you, Blaine. We'll not take time away from you, but we're back into that sound. I see some others pointing to their ears as well.
Okay.
The new world we live in.
Apologies, Mr. Chair. We're still looking into it. The ITs are looking into it.
Gone now if it lasts.
Okay, should I proceed?
So, Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
the
let's start. You can start over again, Blaine, so everything's in one straight format if you want to start again. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Blaine Cameron. Oh.
We are having some technical difficulties today. Everybody's mic's off, so.
The problem appears to be on our end, so they're muting and unmuting the room to see if it solves the problem or not, but they're still working on it. They're going to give me a heads up as soon as we can start.
Okay, thanks.
As an update, I don't know how long this is going to take.
Well, we'll just, we'll have to wait. Do we have a hard stop at
I can double
6,
I can double check.
double
I'll get
check
back to
on
you
that.
shortly. Yeah.
5:30, I guess, Ottawa time, 6:30 mine. Our apologies, folks.
So Wayne, should I be giving the BC flower update then while we're waiting?
You might as well. Well, I guess it'll come through. You're
Yeah,
coming-
so
You're coming
cherry
through lots clear to me.
blossoms, forsythia, apple blossoms, but also the rhododendrons are now coming up in the front yard. So just wanted to pass that on.
Don't forget the
to those of my
dogwoods.
colleagues.
Dogwood.
Sometimes-
Maybe in
sometimes we-
Abbotsford, not here.
Oh yeah, dogwoods, full bloom.
Okay.
Sometimes we love you, Peter, and sometimes we don't.
Mr. Chair, would you like to officially suspend for now? I don't think he can hear me anymore.
Yours again, third time, hopefully is a charm. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm Blaine Cameron. I'm chair of Ottawa Centre chapter of Acorn Canada. We're a national independent membership-based organization of low and moderate income people. We're a community union of 140,000 members in 9 cities across Canada. Thank you very much for giving me us the opportunity to speak today. Acorn would like to bring to the committee's attention the following issues. The need for affordable, high-speed internet for all. Access to affordable, high-speed internet is a lifeline, and with the pandemic, the need is greater than ever. But still, far too many low-income Canadians don't have access to it. Acorn did a survey of 600 low and moderate income community members in 2019. Out of the respondents with household incomes under 30,000, 80% had home internet. 65% of the people filling out the survey had to sacrifice things like food, medication, and such to afford their home internet. The current federal voluntary opt-in program called the Connecting Families Program needs to be made mandatory and expanded. Currently, it only targets families with children, leaving out seniors and many other families. The speed of the internet is too slow with multiple children in the household, and the uptake of the program is as low as 5%. Government should immediately create a $50 monthly benefit, Canadian broadband benefit, retroactive to January 1st, 2021, to 6 months after the pandemic. The benefit should be for all low-income Canadians, fixed income seniors, and those Canadians with job or income loss due to COVID-19. Pardon me. In the long term, provide affordable high-speed internet access by expanding the Connecting Families program and providing all low-income Canadians and fixed-income seniors $10 a month high-speed internet. The speed of the internet should be 50-10, which I believe is 50 download and 10 upload. The need for fair and inclusive banking. We're happy to see the recent budget that it mentions addressing predatory lending by doing a consultation focused on lowering the criminal rate of interest in the Criminal Code of Canada. Acorn's latest study, released in February 2021, shows a massive growth in the use of installment loans. When we did a study back in 2016, 11% of people had taken installment loans, which has now jumped to 45%. Plus, payday lenders continue to charge an exorbitant interest rate around 400 to 500%. With the loan. Add payday lending back under Section 347. Remove exception 347.1. Do not allow any other exceptions, such as for installment loans or others. Introduce a fair credit benefit funded by the government, administered by the banks. Lower NSF fees, non-sufficient funds, from $48 to $10. Thirdly, the need for affordable housing. The government must bring a rent relief program for tenants who have lost their jobs and are on the verge of eviction. Stop predatory lenders such as real estate investment trusts, otherwise known as REITs, from destroying affordable housing. Do so by closing the tax loopholes in the Income Tax Act that gives huge exemptions to REITs. The Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation aids and abets the process of financialization of housing by offering its insured mortgage products to assist REITs to secure the financing needed to buy new buildings. Bottom line is that REITs, business models, and acquisition strategies are dependent on CMHC backing, meaning that CMHC has a significant amount of leverage over REITs to ensure that affordable housing in Canada is preserved. This must stop, and any CMHC-backed financing should ensure that it has clear no displacement conditions. Create a national nonprofit acquisition strategy funded as part of the National Housing Strategy. The strategy should fund and give the right of first refusal to nonprofit, co-op, and land trust organizations to purchase rental buildings when they come on the market. Ban REITs to own certain types of multifamily residential buildings that are best suited for permanent and true affordable housing by nonprofits. Fourth, and finally, is the need to modernize employment income. We welcome some of the changes the government has made to the EI system. However, most of these changes are temporary. Moreover, the system is still inaccessible and the benefit inadequate for low-wage workers. The government should undertake a quick and comprehensive review of EI. Make EI accessible for all workers by lowering the hour requirement consistently across the country to 300 hours or 12 weeks of insurable work, whichever is better for the worker. Denmark makes it hard for working people who have paid into the system to use it. Pardon me. Sorry, the current system makes it harder. Raise the benefit rates for all workers to 75% of earnings and raise benefits to 100% of earnings for low-wage workers. Thank you once again for having Acorn here.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Cameron. Turning then to Mike Reamer, owner and operator, Churchill Wild. Mr. Reamer? Can you hear me, Mike Reamer? There you go.
Yep, we're back on here. Sorry about that. Just typical technical difficulties for a gentleman of my advanced age. Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, it's Mike here with Churchill Wild. I'm the owner operator of a small business based out of Churchill, Manitoba. We're family owned and involved in remote high-end polar bear ecotourism on the Western Hudson Bay coast. 2021 marks our 40th year in tourism in Manitoba, and in 2019, our last full season of pre-pandemic operations, we employed 10 full-time and up to 60 full-time seasonal staff. Our base of operations is in the remote community of Churchill, Manitoba, which, like us, depends entirely on tourism for revenue. We are considered a bucket list destination for a global clientele eager to encounter Canada's spectacular wildlife, in particular our fabulous polar bears. Churchill Wild is part of a greater $108 billion tourism industry in Canada, employing 1.8 million people. We are representative of a typical multi-generational business in Canada that is being devastated by the current travel lockdowns due to COVID. Most of us have had zero income for the past 15 months and likely will not survive many more months of this. Assistance from both federal and provincial governments have been well-intentioned, but at best has delayed the inevitable bankruptcies that are facing many of us this year. And our experience with those helps has been as follows. Federally, the CEWS program, the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy, is a helpful program, but for a business such as ours with zero income, it only limits the losses while trying to keep our staff engaged for a hopeful future reopening. Wage subsidy is a subsidy against wages paid to staff. So if we qualify at the highest rate, as an example, for every $100 spent, we get 75 back. We still end up spending more to lose more. Last summer, we attempted to employ our highly specialized seasonal staff, as it's crucial we don't lose them for the future reopening. That means we took on additional losses. We spent thousands of dollars only to get less back so that we could keep good staff involved to some degree. We created make work projects, the most experienced bear guides in the world, are sanding walls in hopes of being able to retain them the following year. An experiment we could ill afford and are very hesitant to repeat this year. Due to the way CEWS works, if we had no revenue in off-season months, which is typical for us, and happened to sell one of our $25 cookbooks, this revenue change percentage disqualifies us from CEWS for that time period. So an $8 million business essentially is disqualified from thousands of dollars of support due to some strange loophole or rule that if we sell anything at all, we don't qualify. So we are in fact discouraged from selling the few trinkets we might be able to sell, not that they really affect the big picture. The CERS, the rent subsidy, we do have an office just south of Winnipeg, and we do use it for that, but all of our lodges and facilities are up north and remote and carry horrendous insurance rates with them. Rent subsidies really do nothing for us there. CEBA, which is a Canadian Emergency Business Account, we use that as well, but again, doesn't help when we don't take in any money. Sort of like if I told you to go on living your life, but you won't be paid anymore. But if you need help, I'll give you a loan. Pretty tough to make loan payments without income. HASCAP, we would presently need to change over our banking because local credit unions can't access it. But again, it's to get a 4% interest rate loan, which without income, how do you make the payments, especially with interest? Provincially, we had an opportunity for a bridge grant, which we used, but for an $8 million revenue business such as ours, $15,000 bridge grant is sort of just a nice way to have a barbecue. The guy who we use, is just an example, the guy we used to run the dog team program for us, takes in about $20,000 annually and qualifies for the same $15,000 bridge grant as our company. So beyond the crippling financial losses our industry is enduring, it is also the great unknown that is sort of tearing the guts out of us. After 15 months of no income, we still have no indication of when and if we will ever open our doors again. Every few weeks, the rules and regulations change. We sway in the wind, waiting, wondering, spending, and losing money. We're unable to give our staff any assurances of what their lives will look like more than 3 weeks from today if we're lucky. No opportunity to give them something to plan towards. When will we be able to work? Can we give them any work this summer? Or will we incur even greater losses simply to try and keep them employed that we can actually hang on to them until we get back to work? So those of us in tourism have ended up feeling rather abandoned by government. We are facing 100% income losses while other businesses appear to be not only surviving, but oddly actually thriving in COVID. The glaring disparity is numbingly depressing for us. We listen to reports and we actually see colleagues in other industries that are experiencing record-breaking profits. Housing, construction, real estate, equipment maintenance, roadworks, everything else around us seems to be off the charts profitable while tourism is collapsing. And it further makes no sense that businesses with zero revenue and those that are profiting are still utilizing the same programs. Our first choice would be to be allowed to operate safely, of course, and showcase this wonderful province to our country and the world. But if that is taken from us, at least allow us for some specialized help for businesses such as ours. Canadian tourism destinations such as ours showcase Canada to the world, and it is imperative we reignite that excitement in global travelers once again. Canada cannot afford to fall behind in what is a very, very competitive marketplace. And we're seeing even now some of our longtime tour operators who have brought us guests over the years from around the globe are starting to shift destinations, starting to shift operations to different destinations. As an example, Alaska is opening up this summer, and some of our tour operators are taking their groups to Alaska because they perceive Canada as unwelcoming and as an unsafe destination. So that will have long-term side effects as well for us. And there's a growing concern that we'll miss the upcoming reopening surge in travelers eager to be on the move again. There's a real urgency out there, I think, a sense that people, once there's some safe way to travel, they will be coming in droves. And we need to be part of that. So I'll ask you guys, if your employer were to ask you to take a pay cut for the greater good of the country, how much would you be able to afford or willing to take? 10%, 20%, 50%? We were not asked, we were told, and it was 100% pay cut. And we gamely struggled through 2020, living on hope for the coming promised vaccines, which might put all of our lives back to some semblance of normalcy. And we entirely understood the need to protect our loved ones from COVID and did not for 1 minute begrudge the necessary lockdowns while trying to beat back this common enemy. But we are now facing a very real potential of a second year of no income, not a reduced income, but zero, while Canada struggles to get vaccine programs underway. And this is simply unacceptable. We are an enormously valuable industry. We must be allowed to survive so that Canada's world-class tourism destinations will be around to welcome travelers in the coming reopening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reamer, and we do appreciate you calling it as you see it on the ground. We want to hear the facts from your perspective. Turning then to the Frontier Duty Free Association, Mr. Bachand, board member and Land Border Duty Free store owner, and Ms. Lee, also a board member and a store owner. Floor is yours.
Thank you and good afternoon. My name is Tanya Lee. I'm an owner-operator of a small land border duty-free in Sarnia, Ontario. We service travelers crossing into Port Huron, Michigan. With me today is Philippe Achand, store owner, operator in Phillipsburg, Quebec, and he is also a fellow member of the FDFA Board of Directors. Our Canadian Land Border Association is made up of 33 stores across the Canadian border. Our businesses were effectively shut down over a year ago when the border closed in March 2020. We are an export business that can no longer export. We are the hardest hit businesses in this country. Unlike other businesses, our stores cannot pivot to other business models. By regulation, all of our duty-free sales are export sales. So we cannot sell online to domestic travelers unless they are physically crossing the border to the USA. We cannot sell our inventory into the Canadian domestic market. Other tourism businesses like local B&Bs who have lost their US visitors, they can turn to domestic Canadian tourists. The local restaurant can turn to curbside pickup. Duty-free stores have no option but to wait for a fully open border. We have been very supportive of government actions to protect the health of Canadians, but our industry is now sustaining year-over-year decreases of over 94%. We need help to survive and to recover. We have been able to access some federal programs, such as the wage and rent subsidies. However, due to our unique position on the border, some of these programs do not apply to us. This is an industry that employs upward of 2,500 people in very small border communities. And after a year of very significant losses to our industry, the long-term viability of our industry is at risk. We have two solutions which we ask you to support and to champion. First, in Budget 2021, a $500 million tourism relief fund was announced. We are asking your support to channel some of this fund into a duty-free relief fund to help us stay alive and to recover, to allow grants of up to $200,000 per store with a total maximum budget allocation of $6.6 million. Philippe?
Merci beaucoup, Tanya.
Thank you very much, Tanya.
Committee, we need an export designation to recover long term. Il est également important que nous...
It's also important for us to receive long-term support. Our internal projections indicate that it'll take 2 to 3 years for us to completely recover from the present crisis. And even if the Canada-US border reopens in the coming months.
Sold at duty-free store are for export only and are immediately exported to the United States. However, due to an unclear federal designation, the products sold at Canadian duty-free store are erroneously subject to domestic policies, which put the store at a massive competitive disadvantage with the US duty-free and retailers, and ultimately result in significant revenue lost here in Canada. We are asking this committee and the federal government to create a special overarching legislation that will allow our store to come out of this crisis with an export sector designation, with all the rights and privileges to facilitate our recovery post-crisis and level the playing field with American counterparts, our only competitor. The small but powerful legislative initiative should have paramountcy and be instructive over other legislation that encumber our ability to compete as an export market. We have submitted the full plan of duty-free export designation to each committee member and to the committee. We would like to thank you for your time, and we will be ready to welcome questions afterward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bachand. Then turning to Hebdoes, Quebec, you'll have to give me that proper name. Mr. Poisson, General Director, and Mr. Chartier, Editor-Chief of the Board.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Easter. We say Hebdo Quebec, kind of
hebdo, like weeklies, you know. So, je me présente, je suis
I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Benoit Chartier, President of the Board of Directors of Hebdo Québec, and I'm accompanied today by Sylvain Poisson, who is the Director General. So, Sylvain, to you. You're on mute, Sylvain.
Ah, bon, d'accord.
Okay. Sorry, I've got it now. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. Founded in 1932, Hebdo Québec is a not-for-profit association that brings together a large majority of the editor-owners who are independent owners of weeklies on a regional and local basis. We have as our mission to defend the regional local press and also to develop the weeklies. These weeklies have gone through many crises in the past. Their owners are true entrepreneurs that have been able to work through decades of difficulties because this industry goes back 170 years. These editors are very proud, and Mr. Chartier is one of them. He's the owner of 5 weeklies, including the dean of all weeklies, that is to say. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? That weekly goes back 170 years. They are very strong entities that fight for freedom, for equality, for pluralism, and make a great contribution to society, to the government, to the institutions, and also to the organizations in their just society. They generate social change that is significant in the areas of education, health, culture, and economy. They are essential for the social cohesion in our area, for reflection and for information purposes. Our industry has gone through the media crisis, which has presented many challenges, many issues in terms of digital transformation. You have the duopolis of Google, Facebook, which has taken over some 80% of the advertising in income online in Canada without having to pay to produce it. So to our mind, it's only a regulatory framework that is similar to what has been adopted in Australia, which might be able to reestablish and correct the lack of equilibrium that now exists in our area of work. So we're placing all our trust in the Government of Canada, including all parties, and the Minister of Canadian Heritage. We want to be able to see legislation like that adopted. What's more, we think that it's very important, given all these issues, in the framework of the consequences of a pandemic that has been so disastrous. So we have to be able to have human resources that will help us survive the pandemic. Benoit, well, our path is to protect public information on a community basis and community life by publishing in new areas, regional areas that will add to the richness of the area. Without having a spokesperson that is close to the people, it is very difficult to have any public debate by citizens if there is no tribunal, no podium for people to understand federal, regional, and municipal politics and to have an idea of cultural, sports, and economic issues. We want to thank the Standing Committee for inviting us here today, particularly with respect to the study on the COVID-19 expenditures program. The federal budget brought in by the minister some 2 weeks ago does not include many specific issues for our industry. We are hoping, though, that some announcement will be coming forward with respect to reducing the power of the web giants, because we believe that the federal government must play an essential role in standardizing the ground rules in this area. We also note the imposition of a 3% tax on digital services with respect to the contribution of data and the content of Canadian users. We are impatient to see the details in this matter for the some $300 million over 2 years for Heritage Canada. This will help us get out of the crisis. It is the same thing with respect to the announcement of the program that should help some 160,000 businesses absorb new technologies. And the extension of the wage subsidy queues to September 25th, 21 seems essential and vital to us, even though the budget provides for a phase-out as of July 4th. In conclusion, we think that the $96 million over 5 years for carrying out the Competition Bureau's work is very relevant. I think I have to remind you that in 2018-2019, Ottawa spent $52 million on advertisements at Google, Facebook, Twitter, and other digital giants. During the same period, the federal government spent $11.6 million for online advertising on other platforms. Purchases of this ilk represent some $24 million at Facebook. Without spending a single cent, the government would be able to participate in the media and have a very positive effect on our future. According to the Media Studies Center in 2020, our industry went from 200 to 113 titles because of mergers, closures, and transformations into bi-monthlies or monthlies. The pandemic has made the situation worse. It's dropped by 30 to 40%, and our workforce has fallen by 20%. So thank you.
To reply to your question, especially about the war that we want to make and fight against Facebook and Google. Thank you.
Thank you very much to you both. Then we'll turn to the National Association of Friendship Centers, Mr. Shepard, President, and Ms. Formsma, Executive Director. Mr. Shepard, I believe.
Thank you. Atili, Christopher Shepard, Yuvunga. Good afternoon, committee. My name is Christopher Shepard. I'm the president of the National Association of Friendship Centers. I want to recognize that I'm joining you today from Saskatoon, which is Treaty 6 and the homeland of the Métis. I'm joined by Jocelyn Formsma, who is our executive director of the National Association. And we thank you today for the opportunity to appear before you. The Indigenous population in Canada is young, growing, and largely urban-based. Our network is an Indigenous, self-determined response to the symptoms of urbanization experienced by Indigenous people in Canada. Nationally, approximately 61% of all Indigenous people are living in urban settings. Friendship centers are known within urban Indigenous communities for creating much-needed support structures that are not available anywhere else. Through our extensive culturally relevant supports programs and services, we create safer and welcoming spaces for Indigenous people in urban settings. These services span a range of areas, including health, housing, education, recreation, language, justice, employment, economic development, culture, and community wellness. As a result, Indigenous people build their socioeconomic status and feel a greater connection to urban Indigenous communities in which they call home, reside, or visit. Friendship centers also do outreach and partnership development with the broader public, community organizations, municipalities, and governments to foster better understanding of Indigenous history and circumstances. This work fosters greater anti-racist understanding and acceptance of Indigenous people in urban settings. So we are looking sort of how we're presenting our work today is around the budget that was just presented and some of the periphery COVID-19 pieces that we've seen in the past. And so we're pleased at some of the commitments made for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. However, the 2021 federal budget falls short with respect to urban Indigenous people, communities, and organizations. While we recognize the historic investment in Indigenous communities, we believe the federal government missed an opportunity to announce investments specifically for urban Indigenous people. The 2021 budget was tabled as the country navigates out of over a year of uncertainty and worry, in which Indigenous communities have been disproportionately affected. The NAFC actively sought a response from the federal government that factors the unique challenges Indigenous people face in urban areas. This year's budget included the expansion of Aboriginal Head Start, the Indigenous Community Support Fund, Indigenous Early Learning, as well as funding for anti-racism initiatives, health navigators, and Jordan's Principle workers. And while we're encouraged to see the investments for Indigenous communities and organizations in expanding Aboriginal Head Start, employment and training and justice, we're disappointed that there were few specific investments for urban Indigenous people. As the largest network serving the largest percentage of Indigenous people in Canada, we were hoping for some recognition of the importance of this community and the critical work. The Government of Canada has adopted a distinctions-based approach to its federal policy and decision-making. Distinctions-based means the three federally recognized Indigenous groupings in Canada, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit. While commendable that the distinctions-based approach was intended to remedy the previous pan-Indigenous or pan-Aboriginal or one-size-fits-all approach to Indigenous policy and decision-making, our experience has been that it also excludes urban-based and two-spirit LGBTQ+ people. We advocate for urban service delivery. There needs to be an inclusive and balanced approach that also ensures that diversities are recognized and the diverse needs of urban Indigenous and the 2S LGBTQ+ community members are met. We welcome the budget's inclusion of the Community Service Recovery Fund and the continuation of the Indigenous Community Support Fund and the Investment Readiness Program. These funds will be essential to building resilience among our network and many other Indigenous and non-Indigenous charitable and nonprofit service providers and social enterprises on the front lines of the pandemic and beyond. The Friendship Center movement stands ready to engage and remain a strong national partner with the federal government to ensure that urban Indigenous people have access to every benefit for Indigenous people that was announced in the 2021 budget. While there is no direct mention of Friendship Centers and little mention of urban Indigenous, there are numerous areas that were outlined in the budget proposal that there have been funds announced for. This includes work regarding anti-violence and MMIWG, addressing anti-Indigenous racism in healthcare, Indigenous-led healthcare, children's programming, youth engagement, food security, social finance, access to justice, and consultations on the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, infrastructure, housing, and homelessness. The NAFC will continue our work to ensure that the largest and fastest growing demographic of Indigenous people in Canada, urban Indigenous people, will benefit from every opportunity presented in the budget. We thank you for your time and consideration, and as always, we really look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. Then before I go to the last witness, we've got authorization to go about to 5:45 to 5:50 Ottawa time, so we can stick with our regular time frame on questions. And the first ones to raise questions will be Mr. Falk, followed by Ms. Zerowitz. Turning then to Ottawa Special Events, Mr. Wood, welcome again. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. It's nice to see you again. It's nice to see MP Zerowitz, MP Fraser. And I'd also like to thank MP Kelly for asking me to join today. To address the federal response to the COVID-19 crisis in small businesses across Canada, I'm very fortunate that I've met over 35 ministers, MPs, and MPPs from across all party lines during a global crisis, while hosting roundtables with other small business owners that are not sure where to turn. The last 13 months have been incredibly difficult. My business is down 97% in gross revenue, which corresponds to revenue losses of more than $3 million. I'm not alone. Many of these small businesses are in sectors that you and your families have supported over the years: the arts, travel, restaurants, hospitality, tourism, and more. And we're not expected to return to a normal balance for up to 5 years. But yet support is expected to be reduced starting in July. In March of 2020, I had to lay off my entire staff, some of whom had been with me for more than 8 years. I've yet to be able to rehire one of them part-time, let alone full-time. Not only did they lose their jobs, they also lost their full benefits paid for by a small business. Although you can empathize with what I'm saying, I find it hard for you to understand what so many Canadians continue to endure until you were to find yourself in this position. Today, I'm going to discuss 5 critical issues facing Canadians that own and work for small businesses. First, small business owners took out loans before COVID-19. These loans have personal guarantees. Minister Freeland's office directed me to Minister Champagne to discuss my idea of no-fault bankruptcy. He's yet to reply to any of my multiple outreaches. I've done the same with Minister Lametti and his parliamentary secretary. Again, I have not heard back. This should be of utmost importance. Canadians should not lose their businesses, their homes, all of their assets through something they did not create. Stop and imagine for a second that you and your family lose everything by no fault of your own, but government decisions. How does that thought even make you feel right now? Second, the Canadian Response Benefit has been greatly appreciated, but it's not enough. In Ontario, $450 a week is almost 20% less than the minimum wage. Small businesses have had to put their lives and livelihoods on hold, and they're not fairly being compensated for sacrifice. I live in a simple 1,600 square foot home. My mortgage alone with property taxes is $1,800 a month. I've been on the program for a year. Again, I did not put myself in this position. Thirdly, the HASCAP program needs to be reassessed. I met with Jeffrey Valois from the PMO and Zachary Nixon from Minister Ing's office, along with half a dozen other small business owners about this. There has to be a contingency for extremely affected sectors. There's a huge discrepancy between a decline of 50% in gross revenue and a decline of 90% or more in gross revenue. Small businesses cannot continue to borrow our way out of this. 4, while the government made necessary changes to the rent program, which no longer allowed landlords to dictate whether or not they'd participate, there are still gaps. For many companies, there is not enough revenue to cover the 35% hole left in rent coverage. The sliding scale that it currently is on needs to be reassessed. And we must raise that maximum coverage of 65% to something more meaningful for Canadian small business owners. It is of the utmost importance to note as well that commercial leases also contain personal guarantees. Tenants across Canada have had their assets confiscated by landlords as they have limited revenue coming in through their doors. The Canadian wage subsidy is expected to be reduced in July. Many industries will not even have a chance to recover or resume any form of normal operations before it is reduced. Right now, small businesses are at risk, while more than 340 Shoppers Drug Mart locations have accessed the program in its full capacity. They haven't lost a dime. Many industries can't even fill the 25% gap, which continues to keep employees laid off. According to the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, the CFIB, Canadian small business owners are contemplating closing their business, about 20%, which would equate to 2.4 million jobs at risk across Canada. To survive this, small business owners need CEBA debt forgiveness as well as HST forgiveness, especially for those that are hardest hit. I've developed relationships at all levels of government across all party lines by providing productive, balanced, nonpartisan solutions. The uncertainty caused by delays in program development, the risk of people losing everything they've worked for, and insufficient definite direction have led to a parallel pandemic in our country, a mental health pandemic. Let small business and the government finally work together to develop tangible solutions to not only save Canadian jobs, but lives as well. Thank you so much, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wood, and certainly thank you all for your presentations today. We'll turn to a 6-minute round first, Mr. Falk, followed by Ms. Zerowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank all of the witnesses here at committee today. You've had some very interesting and heart-wrenching stories. Mr. Reimer, I'd like to start with you at least. You're a constituent of mine. You live in my riding, but you operate your business in northern Manitoba. And for those folks not familiar with Churchill Wild, I invite you to Google that sometime, churchillwild.com. And they got a phenomenal website, and it'll certainly whet your appetite to do some northern Manitoba tour excursions. You failed to mention in your opening comments that you have built this business from the ground together with your wife and your family members. And including that you bought the business early on from your in-laws who had started a very small lodge business, and that your company employs many Indigenous folks from the communities around Churchill, and they provide the necessary support that you need to run your 4 different lodges in northern Manitoba. You've indicated that you've had 0 income for 15 months, and that you don't expect any this coming season. How do you keep your business afloat?
Just to interrupt, Mike, before you start, can you raise your mic a little? Interpreters say you're just a wee bit more yet. There, try that. You're on mute too. It may be the other thing on here.
Sorry, how's that?
There we go. We're all dandy now.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, thank you, Ted. We are barely surviving, and what we are surviving on is probably similar to many other tourism entities, and we're essentially living on money we have borrowed from our clientele. We were quick to retain our deposits that we had collected at the end of 2019, believing or doubting that this would be a quick recovery. And at some risk, we took a lot of hard hits on social media. We actually had some lawsuits coming our way because people demanded their money back when the borders were closed, and it was obvious they would not be coming on our trips in 2020. So we essentially are living on that money. We have a small pool of cash reserves remaining in the bank. It's not our money, it's money that we owe to our clients. We owe them their trip that they have reserved, that they will now hopefully be taking in 2022. I shudder to say that word. But so that's what's happened. We are living on those funds. And when they run out, which they are running out and will run out shortly, we will be out of money. And we will still owe our clients essentially that money. We will owe them that trip. So that's what's going on. And unfortunately, what's going to happen is if we do run out of money, if we do fold, as many businesses will, Canada and the rest of us we will all get a very big black eye in tourism in general, worldwide. It's a huge trust issue that's at stake right now. And if global clients perceive Canada as a place where they left their money to be frittered away, so to speak, or lost, they will be very hesitant to commit new funds to new trips in the future to Canada. So that's what's going to happen. We're going to get severely hammered on social media if our businesses start to fold and we are unable to provide those trips that people have sunk their hard earnings into. So that's sort of what we're up against, and we need to figure out a way to prevent that from happening, because Canada cannot afford to lose that edge.
You've mentioned in your presentation the various government programs that you've explored, and as fully as you're able to, you've taken advantage of those programs. But you've also indicated that you actually need revenue, and revenue is what's missing. Your business losses are a direct result of government decisions to curb COVID, which you have indicated you don't begrudge. You recognize the necessity of the decisions made, but they've basically taken away your lifeline, and so now you need help. I was on your website and I noticed that there's a section on your website of all the philanthropy that your organization has been involved with over the years, and how you've given back to community and you've supported the local Indigenous people there with good employment. And now it's time for the government to help you. Now it's your turn to get some help. And so I'm wondering, is there any particular suggestions you would have that this committee could forward on to government, to the finance minister, that would help businesses like yourself?
Well, there are two. One sort of perhaps smaller one, but it's in reference to the CEWS program, which if we don't have any income and we're paying out to our staff, obviously we're going backwards. If we could reboot that sort of, or reshuffle that for businesses such as ours, and there were others mentioned on the panel, if there could be rejigged, so to speak, to offer 100% wage subsidy for businesses that are 90+% revenue losses year after year here, that would certainly be a help. Absolutely. Then we could engage with our employees who are critical to the reopening. That's actually almost one of our biggest fears, is where will our employees be when we do get a chance to start again, because we're totally dependent on good staff, as we all are, those of us in business. So I don't know the metrics of it, but would think that there's this way to simply rejig this or realign this so that it works for people like us, businesses like ours that are suffering such huge losses. And then the other thing would be if there's a potential to expedite a safe reopening of tourism destinations such as ours right now. Is there a way to just backing up a little bit, there was much needed priority given to vaccines for our northern communities and our First Nations communities. And so most of these people have now been vaccinated and essentially are safe, so to speak. And if we could ensure rapid testing points at departures, airports, gateway cities, key travel points along the way, we should be able to safely move visitors along that pipeline into remote communities that have all been vaccinated, and essentially provide that service that they're more than willing to pay for and have paid deposits on. And I'll just briefly, if I could pass this on to Mr. McLeod, I believe, I don't recall, but you're from the NWT, and I've just recently heard that Northwest Territories is allowing for remote tourism activities under certain guidelines. I'm not sure if that's correct, but we are hearing that. So that would be one way to do it, is give us an opportunity to create some sort of avenue that visitors can come once again.
Thank you. I think I'm out of time.
Yes, you're quite a bit over time, but that's fine. It was a very good, and thank you for the suggestions there, Mr. Reimer. Turning then to Ms. Sirowitz, I believe splitting time with Ms. Kotrakis. Julie?
Thanks so much, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank everyone for their very thorough and thoughtful presentations. It was a lot of very important information for us to be hearing today. I have questions for all of you, but I only have less than 3 minutes to ask. So I'm actually going to start with you, Mr. Reimer, as well. I hear you. There is, you're right, there's an unevenness in the recovery. That we get to your point about that the support that we're providing needs to be targeted. And I think we're very much trying to do that with our programs in terms of eligibility. As you know, through our budget, we're approaching $1.2 trillion in debt. And we know our companies are still struggling across this country, particularly in our tourism sector. I don't think there's any expectation that our federal government's going to swoop in and sort of give every single company everything that they need. So my question to you is, what's fair? What is fair? You've provided some ideas, but what's fair in terms of what the government needs to provide more and what we should be expecting from companies in terms of being able to step up? Is it that within the tourism industry where people have completely lost all their lifelines, we need to do even more, irrespective of what businesses are able to contribute? So my thing is, what's fair in terms of government to sort of step up versus a company? How would you respond to that?
I think that we have always been built by entrepreneurs and people that understand there's no money left in the pot. We get that. And we actually don't want it. We want to engage our people, our staff. We want to open and do business. And the biggest help would be is if government could create what I just mentioned, these sort of avenues, unique avenues perhaps, and I don't know how difficult that would be for visitors to begin coming to Canada again. That would be our greatest gift, our greatest ask is let's back away a little bit from this response of lock the doors, lock the doors, lock the doors. Every time there's another COVID event, and perhaps rethink this whole strategy and come up with a plan that we can safely move people back and forth in and out of Canada without impacting our general population. I don't know if that's possible or how that would work.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And I'll ask one more quick question, then pass it over to my colleague. And it's to Acorn Canada. We have, I know that you're very focused on low and middle class families and Canadians. We actually have in our budget announced we're increasing the Canada Worker Benefit quite substantially, investing $8.9 billion, which is going to top up 1 million low-income Canadians. Can you tell me whether or not you believe that this is going to be supportive to low-income Canadians, in your opinion, particularly the ones that you represent?
Yeah, a lot of our members are low-income workers. A lot of them are frontline workers. So anything that benefits or helps them make ends meet is going to be quite beneficial, as they're in a really precarious place where lost income immediately affects their material well-being and their health. If someone is trying to afford their rent and they can't go to work because of the pandemic, they're going to have to start, as I mentioned in my presentation, they're going to have to start compromising, what they buy at the grocery store, and the cheap stuff that you can buy is detrimental to your health. So,
thank you, Mr. Cameron.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Okay, Annie will be followed by Mr. St. Marie. You got about 2 minutes, Annie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ma question est pour Hebdo.
My question is for Hebdo Quebec. Last year, our government introduced some special measures for journalism in Canada, for periodicals as well, to provide some short-term help for magazines and for other publications that have been hard hit by the pandemic. Have your members received some of this help? And if so, should it be continued? Thank you. Yes, thank you very much for the question. Last summer, we benefited from the periodicals aid throughout Canada. The federal government provided that, and also there were certain amounts of money that were provided, and I'd have to say that was very much welcomed by the members of the association, some hundreds in Quebec. It was something very important for us, very significant. I don't want to make comparisons, but I do know for Quebec, in terms of the aid that we get from the provincial government in Quebec, the federal government is a little bit behind what the provincial government is able to provide our industry in Quebec, although it's difficult to compare, of course, because the Quebec government is very generous in terms of relief that it provides. But the federal government, nonetheless, is very important, and what it gave us was very much welcomed. We received other relief, other aid as well, because our newspapers are suffering from the perfect storm. That is, there's a drop in revenues, but also we are going through a fratricidal war with this duopolis of Google and Facebook throughout Canada, coast to coast.
Paper.
Weeklies or daily newspapers, and even the small newspapers, but also the Courrier de Saint-Hyacinthe, the Toronto Star, the Globe and Mail are affected by this. That we are being, our copyright is being stolen by these digital giants from the United States, and they do so without any shame.
Okay, thank you all. Turning then to Mr. St. Marie, followed by Mr. Julian. 6 minutes, Gabriel.
Oui, merci, Wayne.
Yes, Wayne, thanks so much. Once again, thank you for being here today, witnesses. I want to ask some questions of Hebdo Quebec. Like you say, it's a perfect storm, a double crisis, a double storm, particularly with respect to the competition that is being put forward by the giants, the web giants like Facebook and Google. I was struck by this. You said that there has been a drop from 200 to 113 publications over the past few years, and you've had to 20% drop in your staffing. These are essential services for our communities, and they provide high-quality journalism. You also raised the point that the government is buying more ads on the web giants and online services. But clearly, what is being offered you is insufficient. And you spoke also of the Australian model. What do you think that Ottawa should do to ensure your survival as an essential service? Yes, we are an essential service, Mr. St. Marie, and we are the basis of democracy in Canada. Without newspapers, there's no democracy, no parliament, no elections. The federal government could immediately do this. It could stop buying Twitter, Facebook, and Google ads, all these ads for the ad agencies that ultimately are in the United States. Billions of dollars are being spent there, and they should be being spent in Canada. For some 3 years, no, 4 or 5 years, we've been saying to the government, put ads in our Canadian newspapers. This is a question of survival for the newspapers, but also for Canadian democracy. The federal government should do that tomorrow morning. And also, there should be some very severe fines laid upon Facebook and Google. Minister Guilbeault's bill, the Minister of Canadian Heritage, well, that is a start, but there must be some way of being able to rein in the media force in Canada. And When you see the government, whether and anybody who's sitting in the House of Commons, the Liberals, the NDP, or the Conservatives, there's a problem. There's a clear problem. If you look at the Australian legislation, we think that that would be very much in line to be able to counter what is really an attack here on us in Canada. That would be a counterattack on to help Canadian media. All of this to say that the Australian legislation is the model to be followed, and I invite Minister Guilbeault to do that. And I also ask the parties in Parliament to take note of what Australia is doing for Facebook and Google in Canada, and they should do the same thing here in Canada. Mr. Poisson, you wanted to add something? Well, very quickly, thank you, Mr. Sainte-Marie, if you allow me to speak. Not only is there a need to intervene, but we always insist on the urgency of intervention, particularly over the course of a year. We know that things take time, that the legislative process is very long, and we are very aware of all of this. But this is an even better reason to act as quickly as possible. Because if you don't do that, the future of the media here is really doubtful. Thank you. Well, there will be some web giants that will have to pay some money as well, because really what they are doing right now is making money by taking away your content. What are you talking about? The tax, the digital tax? Is that what you're talking about? Well, yes, that money will be able to be drawn from the digital media of Facebook and Google. But what we really do need, Mr. Sainte-Marie, is some very strong legislation that will be able to rein in Google and Facebook. That's really what we need. When we talk about Australia, there was a polemic that surrounded all of that. Facebook, with all its government contacts in Australia, was put all of that into play. And, you know, Facebook and Google have a long reach. Do I have time for another question?
Bon, très bien.
Very well. So there is less than 2 months before the summer and the summer break in Parliament. You have the Broadcasting Act, which hasn't moved along very far. And also there's online hate legislation and the law that was promised in the spring to you. All of that before possibly going into an election this summer. So unfortunately, the changes you want to see probably won't happen until after the election. Yes, that's very true. But with the C10 and with everything that's going on the internet, but we really want to see the legislation passed, these two, as quickly as possible, because the Canadian newspapers are in crisis at the present time. It doesn't matter if it's a big newspaper or a small newspaper. And there's also this that might complicate things. If it were possible to cut them down, group them together rather into an omnibus bill.
Okay. Thank you all. Turning to Mr. Julian, followed by Mr. Kelly. Peter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just want to quickly check with the clerk. My screen is flickering, and I don't know if you hear me well, and I don't know if the screen is flickering for other members as well.
It's flickering a little bit, Peter, but your sound is coming through good.
Good. Okay, great. Well, thank you very much to all of our witnesses. You bring very important testimony, and hopefully over the next hour we'll have a chance to to ask you more questions on what you've raised. I'd like to start with Mr. Cameron and ACORN. ACORN has endorsed my bill C-274 to end predatory lending in this country. And I'll give you as an example, Mr. Cameron, and before I ask you to give us back some other examples, a constituent who borrowed $700 about 9 years ago has paid $11,000 in interest and still owes the original $700. These are low-income Canadians that, particularly during a pandemic, are having to go to payday lenders and are being absolutely charged appalling amounts because it's legal to do so. So my bill would seek to end the loopholes that allow for interest rates of 500 or 600%. Can you tell us other examples of Canadians, low-income Canadians, being subject to predatory lending and losing everything because of the extraordinary interest rates that are legally charged?
Yes, thank you very much for bringing that up. Yeah, that's not an uncommon story of people getting trapped in these debt cycles, and they can't get services through a regular bank, and they're forced to turn to these predatory lenders. We used to have a postal banking that served low-income communities, and that was eliminated. I know of a member here in Ottawa, or from our Vanier chapter, and he had gotten trapped in a debt cycle like that, getting another loan to pay off the one he took out before, and still needing it to pay his rent, and unable to find work, or the work that he had wasn't enough to cover his expenses. And he had family he could turn to, but he had his pride, and it was quite a stressful event for him. And when family and money get involved, you can really strain relationships, and really puts people in a bind. So yeah, we need to support that bill, and the ability of these lenders to be such predators.
Thank you very much for that, and appreciate the support of ACORN and the work that you do right across the country. Mr. Shepherd, Ms. Forsma, thank you very much for being here today. And you raise an important issue about the budget simply forgetting urban Indigenous peoples. We've seen over the past year $750 billion given to the banking industry in liquidity supports. The Parliamentary Budgetary Officer tells us $25 billion in tax money every year goes to offshore tax havens, benefits the ultra rich and profitable corporations. The absence of a wealth tax means $10 billion every year, again, lost to make those investments for all people in this country. There's not even a pandemic profits tax, and the PBO estimates $8 billion there is the shortfall. That again would make a huge difference. How important is it for the government to ensure that resources are available to urban Indigenous people here in Canada? And how important is it to have Indigenous-led housing? You'll recall the NDP brought forward a motion on that to Parliament. The Liberal government voted against it. But how important is it to have Indigenous-led housing initiatives in urban centres across Canada?
Thank you so much for the question. I think we need to look at the numbers, right? Urban Indigenous people, regardless of why they're in the urban settings, are the majority right now. And while we certainly would encourage and support, First Nations, Métis, Inuit governments and other organizations being able to support their folks, the reality is organizations, urban Indigenous organizations like Friendship Centers have been doing it for decades. We're on our 50th year nationally, and some of our local Friendship Centers are on their 60th or almost 70th year. We've done a pretty good job of supporting and advocating for our community members, and that's First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, regardless of their residency or going back and forth. We were extremely disappointed. We have a partnership and support the CHRA, Canadian Housing Renewal Association, and their Indigenous caucus have developed an excellent for Indigenous, by Indigenous, urban Indigenous housing strategy. And in the announcements that were made for infrastructure around housing and support for homelessness, while we do have some of our centers that access like the Reaching Home and some of the other housing initiatives, there still is the gap for urban Indigenous owned and operated housing initiatives. And I think I'll just give this short example. We have friendship centers that provide housing, and the tenants also have access to the wraparound support services that the housing provides. So it's not just a place to live, you get all of the benefits of the support services of the friendship center. And we've had people who have lost their jobs. We've had people who have had difficulty feeding their families, and the friendship center has been able to provide the food, supply delivery to those tenants, but also have been very understanding and have been working with the tenants who are unable to pay their rent. Instead of evicting them, instead of even some of the subsidies that have been available, because of the additional support of the Friendship Center, it's just a much more supportive way to get people into housing that's wraparound.
Okay,
how much? Just a quick
Peter,
question. Yep. Just how much money would be required for that initiative?
Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you. We'd have to, we haven't costed out the plan, but I know the CHRA Indigenous Caucus has done a lot of work in that area. And a lot of times it's just making sure that the wording of these programs are open enough to ensure urban Indigenous is included.
Okay, we are going to have to move on. Mr. Kelly, followed by Mr. McLeod, 5-minute rounds.
Thank you, Wayne. And I'm going to put my first question or opportunity to comment here to Mr. Wood. We have as a committee heard just some tremendously distressing stories from a variety of individual small businesses, including today at this meeting. But Mr. Wood, you commented a bit about just what it is to be a small business owner, the life of a small business owner, the fact that you have to sign personal guarantees on long-term leases, that the bank requires personal guarantees anytime you borrow money. There are no the social supports and all kinds of things that go along with employment income don't apply to self-employed. Can you maybe comment on what the small business community is going through now, with just those that are experiencing these catastrophic collapses in revenue, and how this really works with a family whose income is rooted in small business?
Thank you very much for your question, Mr. Kelly, and thank you for the invite today. Owning a small business, I think a lot of people think that, we do it for, something that we're passionate in, which is true, but we also do it to make a living. And, when I was hearing Mr. Reimer speak today, before I did, I felt a little bit of relief from the sense that somebody is in virtually the same position I'm in, and neither one of us put ourselves in this position. We put ourselves in a position to employ people in our community, to give back to our community. Ottawa gets cold, and there was one year I was, for everybody in Ottawa, all the MPs, I was on the Queensway, I got off at Bronson East, and if you've done this before too, you know that there are people that, are homeless and asking for something. And from that, as my small business person, I created something called Keep Ottawa Warm. And for 3 years prior to the pandemic, we brought in 2,500 pieces of winter clothing that we delivered to the shelters firsthand. We didn't go through any other third party. We went straight to the shelters with the clothes. This is why we have a small business. Right now, when I signed up for a small business and started it from the ground up, my intention wasn't to be a millionaire. I am not a millionaire. 98% of small business owners are not millionaires. We make a living. I have no problem. I have friends watching this right now, and I will tell you that I make $80,000 a year as a small business owner. And I didn't start it to get rich. I started it to be able to provide for myself and my family. And right now, through no fault of my own, I'm personally at risk of losing everything. BDC has personal guarantees on loans. My bank has personal guarantees on loans. My lease with my landlord has a personal guarantee. And yes, I take risk as a small business owner, but I never anticipated that through no fault of my own, I would be in this position.
Right. Thanks. I'm just want to get bring in maybe a couple of our other witnesses, the perhaps either Frontier Duty and Mr. Reimer, actually, or you, Mr. Wood, maybe get all three of you to quickly comment on what it means, what a difference it would make or it will make if we get to and achieve vaccination rates that'll allow you to have your summer season. We've been talking about this as an opposition since last October, that the current government is not on pace to allow Canadians to get back and regain a summer season. Your summer season is at stake with current vaccination rates. Any comment on just getting your customers back as opposed to just having more debt heaped on through support measures?
Could we start with Ms. Wood and then over to Miss Lee and then on to Ms. Reimer, right, Mr. Reimer?
Thank you. I'll be very brief. It's more than getting vaccinations rolled out. It's getting consumer confidence back that they can go to live events, they can go to restaurants, they can take in tourism. And I think we need all levels of government to stop pointing fingers at each other, whether it's Ontario or the federal government. We have to get the vaccines rolled out, build consumer confidence so we can all return to a normal life as quickly as possible.
Ms. Lee?
Thank you very much. Similar comments as Michael. We are solely dependent on the border to open. We need vaccines. We need the border to open so that tourism now can flow, as we are 100% dependent on a fully open border. We make all of our money in the summer. It enables us to stay open in the winter months. And if we miss a summer, that is going to be critical for our industry.
Mr. Reimer?
Okay, yeah, likewise for us, we are pretty much at the point of the tipping point. It's essentially too late for us. Most of our clientele book 12 to 24 months in advance, and we likely won't see any of them this summer. Even if by some miracle borders were suddenly open, we wouldn't see anybody this year.
Thank you all. We'll go on to Mr. McLeod, who will be followed in a short round by Mr. St. Marie. Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to everybody for the presentations today. Very, very interesting. I want to start off first by responding to Mike Reimer from Churchill Wild. Yes, in the Northwest Territories, we are opening up under some very strict guidelines, some of the tourism operations. And it's not going to cover everybody, but it's going to cover quite a few operators. So there's a lot of excitement around that. We'd like to see the national parks maybe consider doing the same. We're having some discussions on that front because in the Northwest Territories, we are probably going to be at 85% vaccination rate by the end of June. So we've got some flexibility. We're putting some very strict conditions on it. And hoping we're going to save some of the operators, some of their businesses and get things at least partially running. My question, though, is to the National Association of Friendship Centers, and it's around the comment that Chris made, I think, on distinct-based funding impact. I know that the new model of funding national organizations doesn't take in the urban Indigenous, but it doesn't take in the Northern Indigenous either. So it is an issue in the Northwest Territories. The reality is, however, Indigenous governments want to see funding flowing directly to them. And in the Northwest Territories, it doesn't matter which way the money flows, as long as it flows to us in the Northwest Territories. And I just wanted to ask him how serious that impact is. Is it something that will threaten the operations of the friendship centers on an ongoing basis? I want to also point out that I am a founding member of the friendship center in my community. And I was so happy to see somebody come knock on my door to see if I was all right. They wanted to know if I was all right. They wanted to know if I needed anything, and they wanted to encourage me to get my vaccine, which I had already. But friendship centers do a lot of good work, and I'm concerned that this issue of distinct-based funding may impact the operations. That's my first question.
Chris, do you want to go ahead?
So I'll take the first portion around how serious it is. For me, the longer the conversation only happens around distinctions-based approaches, the less Inuit I feel. And I don't know how to explain it in any more serious a way than that I sometimes feel the erosion of my identity in many conversations at, when budgets are presented or when programs are designed, when we're not included in that conversation. And we've done some work to look at, UNDRIP doesn't say that, doesn't say this is how your self-determination happens as an Indigenous person. It doesn't say this is through the structures it should happen. They're individualized rights. I should be thought of and looked to or sought for advice regardless of where I live. And I think we and me as an individual, sometimes we look at resource distribution, and there's no way that 61% of resources for Indigenous Canadians are going to urban people or urban organizations. And we are very practical in our thought process of Indigenous people, regardless of where they live. It's not a brand new mentality or a reality. Urban migration is the reason we exist and why we're 60, 70 years old as an organization. And our relationship with Canada.
I have another question that I want, Chris, I want to squeeze in another question. While we're talking about a shift on how money is flowed, I really wanted to point to one of the pillars of the friendship centers, is which friendship centers run independently of political organizations. And that was the beauty and as what attracted me as an individual to work with the friendship centers, to try to set up an operation and community that focused on people rather than whether they're Inuit or Indian or Métis. And if the money is run through one of the national organizations, then you fall under their guidelines or under that umbrella. And it moves away from the intention of friendship centers to run independently outside of political organizations, outside of political bodies. How would that affect the friendship centers? Because, I could see it in some of the communities where the chief or the Métis president would then come in charge of the friendship centers and steer money, not necessarily, they would go towards their membership, not necessarily towards the people that need it or people that come into the community that don't belong to a band or a Métis or council or an Inuit organization.
I might just jump in real quick. So we have some friendship centers that are serving people from about 50 or more First Nations and Inuit and Métis that are outside their homelands, and Inuit that either are not beneficiaries of an Inuit land claim agreement or are just Inuit living in the South. And I think it's important that we cannot run sustainable, reliable, and effective community-driven urban organizations, just, agreement by agreement, hoping to get something from one of the a First Nations Métis or Inuit government or multiple First Nations Métis or Inuit governments. So I think it's really important to recognize that there is a community within the urban setting. Some, cities, Winnipeg, Toronto, Edmonton, Vancouver, we're like 3 or 4 generations in. These aren't people that are just coming from the reserve anymore. These are just people visiting. Like, these are very well ingrained communities. So I think it's really important to ensure that if something is available to an Indigenous person somewhere, that it should be available to an Indigenous person anywhere. Our rights are portable. They are rooted in who we are as people, and I think that's what we're trying to go to. And that some organizations, it just makes sense for Indigenous peoples across distinctions to come together to provide supports for that community.
Okay, we are going to have to move on. I'll just give you where we're at. We do have ample time, so we'll go to 2.5 minutes with Mr. St. Marie and Mr. Julian, 2.5. Then we'll go on. Ms. Wagenthal, I believe you want in. Be a 5-minute round for you and Mr. Fragascatis each. And then we'll have room for 2 more questions after that if somebody wants to give me a signal when we get there. So, Mr. St. Marie, 2.5 minutes.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. My question is for Mr. Bachand. In the measures for recovery that you are asking for, you were talking about visitors' reimbursement. And can you explain a bit further what your intention is? Well, thank you so much, Mr. St. Marie, for your question. The visitors' reimbursement program is one that worked in Canada for tourists who come to visit Canada. The American or the European tourism that would make purchases here in Canada would be reimbursed the federal tax, the GST that they paid at the border of the United States or when they were leaving the country, and even in our stores. So this was a very much appreciated program by the Americans. But in 2007, it was drawn to a close for some obscure reason because really the program was working very well. Some 10 years later, we saw Americans come into our shops with receipts and asking for a tax refund. So people who had come to Canada 10 years before but came back to Canada again they remembered the refund program and they wanted to have the tax refunded them. Also, the OECD countries that does not have a federal tax but refunds tax to visitors. So really, it was a very significant program that we had. Now, with respect to the designation of being an export market, the duty-free shops in Canada, while in Canada, worldwide, have to buy their products from manufacturers to allow visitors to the country to benefit from that tax-free status. Except in Canada, the federal government charges an excise tax on everything, including tobacco. So if you want say an American who comes to Canada wants to buy a carton of cigarettes is going to have to pay an excise tax on it. But the provincial governments will do the markup on the purchases through the liquor boards, the LCB or the SQ, and it's a monopoly, really. These are 2 monopolies where they have this markup on what really reflects their being outside of the rules of trade. So what we would like would be to see something that could come into effect at the land border shops where the domestic internal law would not apply. If we would be able to compete with the American shop that is 200 meters away from us, in actual fact, but which can buy its alcohol and all its products directly from the manufacturer, which we cannot do in Canada. We want to have this possibility of becoming an export sector in Canada. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We are a little over time. Before I do go to Mr. Julian, I do have a question to the Frontier Duty Free Association. I had met with one of your people the other day, and I know you're in a situation now where inventory is running past its best before date. I think I have this right. I was informed that if you now even donate, say it's chocolates or whatever it might be that's on the best before date. I know good Scotch doesn't, there's no best before date there, it just gets better. But if you even give that, donate that material to something, you still had to pay the duty. Am I correct in that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So with respect to inventory donations, because we are an export market, we cannot donate goods and inventory. We cannot sell to the Canadian domestic market. I can speak for my store. We have been giving all of our inventory away free to our essential truck drivers who are crossing. And we've given away hundreds of thousands of dollars of confectionery. I'm currently giving away water, which has an expiration date on it, because we are only destined for an export market and we can only sell to people crossing into the USA. So this is an issue. Because of our status, we are export. We cannot donate our goods into domestic market.
So do you have to still pay duty on that when you give it away or not? If you gave it in locally, you would have to.
We cannot give it in locally, but the goods that I've given away in my store, I do not have to pay tax and duty because I'm giving it away free to a truck driver crossing into the US.
Okay, it has to go that way.
Messieurs, moi j'ai fait la...
Yes, I made a request. I wanted to donate my chocolates because it was in March 2020 that the border closed and there was inventory that was coming to the end of its shelf life at that time. I wanted to be able to donate that close to home, but I had to pay 25% in tax and duties on the chocolate to be able to donate them in Canada, which was really, when you have no income coming in, this is extraordinary.
That was the point I thought. Okay, then turning to Mr. Julian, 2.5 minutes, followed by Ms. Wagenthal.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chair. My next question is for Mr. Poisson and Mr. Chartier, because these are unfair trade practices if you're looking at that. The figures that you presented are quite shocking. Half of these businesses are going to, and newspapers are going to be eliminated. But you've got Facebook and Google that don't pay tax at all and are capable of basically wiping out the weeklies that are serving our communities. What is the tipping point here? Is the government going to react in the next 6 months, as we would hope, or is it going to take years? What will the result be for Quebec and elsewhere in Canada? It's going to be the same result for Quebec or for the rest of Canada. This is an issue that is a national issue. It's not a provincial issue. The government mentioned that, as I mentioned earlier, the government should legislate immediately to cover this. You got C10, and you've got the bill that deals with Facebook and Google. They should be brought together to help Canadians as quickly as possible. And as to the media, you have to apply the legislation that was voted on this winter. In Canada, I talk about the weeklies in Quebec, but I really mean all the journal, all the weeklies and all the newspapers elsewhere, where all the weekly newspapers.
Publication in each, dans tous les comtés de vous tous qui
in each of your ridings, you members have ridings, and this is happening in your ridings, each and every one of them. Each one of you, where you are representing your riding, newspaper editors, you are familiar with the situation, you have political assistance. So really, this is something that affects all of Canada, and it has to be dealt with. In addition, we can't speak about doing this at some point in the future or in 6 months' time. What we need is to have a bill before the end of this legislative session here in Ottawa to be able to have a glimmer of hope before the elections, not after the elections. You're going to have, it's a lengthy process. You're going to have to run the election. You're going to have to form a new cabinet. I think the Minister Guilbeault should be able to do something as quickly as possible to bring in a bill, Mr. Julian, as quickly as possible to deal with this.
Thank you. Thank you all. We'll go to, I hear this election talk. You know when the election's scheduled for? October 2023. Who wants the election? The media. That's all we hear. That's my point of view. Ms. Wagenthal, followed by Mr. Faguscatis.
Oh, all right. We will write down tomorrow in our newspaper.
Right. That's my view. Ms. Wagenthal,
thank you,
sorry,
Chair.
you got 5 minutes.
Thank you. Every committee has its own feel. Quite interesting. I would like to ask a couple of questions of Mr. Reimer. I took some notes as you were speaking, and it just reflects so much of what I see and hear in my own riding as well in Saskatchewan. You cannot live on oxygen for long when that oxygen is not high quality. You cannot compete with other countries when they're moving forward and you're not. You talked of housing construction and road work, all of these areas where they are making profits, and yet tourism and lodging and travel has collapsed. And as a business person, I can't help but think we saw that right from the very beginning, that there just wasn't this help that was needed in this particular sector. You talk about operating safely as your very first option, what you would want to see happen. I struggle with the fact that we're where we are today as a country economically. If you were to go out and purchase a product, say like a vaccine, that was purchased by another country for $2 and you're finding yourself purchasing it at $8, clearly that's not a healthy market. And so I just want to ask, what would it take, do you feel, to be able to operate safely? We're hearing all these words on our news media 24/7 COVID, but I'm not hearing the real things that I need to hear about what is truly needed to be safe in Canada, to be able to operate our businesses, because we cannot afford another shutdown and we need to get moving. So what would you say are the most important things you need to see from this government to be able to open your doors and get back to work?
I think the only way we can expedite that is to establish some sort of rapid testing system that allows travelers to enter the country safely, travel to their destination safely, experience their whatever it is they're doing, and return down that same pipeline back to their various country, such as the States or wherever they're from. Europe, we get a lot of Europeans,
right.
And thereby not interacting or having contact with the general public that is obviously still quite fearful, and rightly so, of the effects of COVID. I think that's a very viable option.
Right, and the rapid testing the right rapid testing has not been available. We've had people have to isolate possibly because of the COVID virus for 14 days when that puts them out of work, puts your whole employment group in jeopardy. So I want to ask as well, Mr. Wood, I missed a lot of this because of internet issues, but I know that small businesses carry a great deal of weight, not only for the fact that you only take from your business what you need to, but you employ people who depend on you. And mental health is a huge issue. My own staff in my office who have their jobs are in tears over trying to cope with people who know that they're losing their business that they've worked so hard for, or cannot keep their staff. What kind of experience has that been for you?
Been a difficult experience, and what I ended up having to do in Ottawa was I held an info session with Provincial Minister Pramit Sarkaria, Provincial Minister Tabolo, as well as with the Royal Ottawa Hospital and Ottawa Public Health. And we put together an info session for business owners on how they can access mental health resources. Because for small business owners, it's not white and black, day and night, as to how they can access this. And so many people are struggling right now based on the potential risk of losing everything, that I felt as a member of my community, I had no choice but to put together this info session in order to help, because there's a lot of people struggling, not only in Ottawa, not only in Ontario, but across our great country.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Fass, did you have a question you wanted to ask? I'm more than pleased to share my time.
Well, thank you, Ms. Wagenthal. A question to Mr. Reimer. I really appreciated the fact that what you're really asking for, in the first place, it's not money, it's not support. You're asking for the economy to be safely reopened so that your business can go back to doing what it does best, which is create jobs and serve the public. The government did come up in its budget with a $500 million tourism fund. Now, when you look at that spread across the country, across the different regional development agencies, that certainly doesn't leave a lot for Manitoba. And then you look at some of the conditions that have been attached where that money could be applied. And again, I'm not sure it's going to serve your needs. You have suggested that the government has not provided specific targeted industry support for your industry. Perhaps you could comment on whether that fund is actually going to achieve what it was intended to achieve, which is to support businesses like yours that were the first to close and will be the last to reopen.
Mr. Reimer?
Yeah, thank you for that, Mr. Fast. I don't see it as really being a solution. I still insist that our only solution that will save us is to let us get back to work, to let us reemploy, get our people back on the job, and move forward with, as you said, what we do best. We would appreciate extra help, extra money, extra programs, but long term, it's not going to save us. We need our doors open. We need to get back to work.
Okay, thank you all. Turning to, before I go to Mr. Fragaskatis, we have time for a round from one more Conservative and one more Liberal. So if somebody wants to signal me on that, they can. Mr. Fragaskatis, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the witnesses. I do want to ask Mr. Cameron and Mr. Reimer questions, but rapid tests have come up here in the meeting, Mr. Chair, and I think that's a good thing. Rapid tests are an important tool in the toolkit, so to speak, recognized as a way forward in some sense. I mean, they're not as accurate as PCR tests, certainly, but they are something that need to be looked at more. And the federal government, if we go on the government's own website, makes clear that close to 41.8 million rapid tests have been sent by the federal government to the various provinces. Unfortunately, only 1.7 million have been used. something is wrong in the distribution. I'm not quite sure where things are off, but when the federal government has lived up to its commitment to support provinces in this way, again, almost 42 million rapid tests sent by the government to the various provinces, but not even 2 million used. I think it poses some real questions. And I've said this before at this committee chair, that provinces have a difficult responsibility right now. They are in charge squarely of healthcare, and things are not easy. But something is wrong in the distribution, and I think it needs to be put on record. Mr. Reimer, your testimony is certainly moving. You've built up your business. I respect that as the son of a small business owner myself, not in the tourism sector, but still, my father was in the restaurant business for decades, and I saw how hard he worked, and I respect you as an entrepreneur. I wanted to ask you a few questions. The percentage of your customer base that is domestic. I'm sure you have clients that have come from the US and other countries, but what percentage of your customers are from Canada? And within that, how many fly in? How many fly in from different parts of the country?
We would have probably about 10% of our clientele would be from Canada, 20 to 30% from the stateside, and then the balance from places like Europe, Asian countries. Australia figures pretty heavily in our numbers. Mm-hmm. And we are entirely fly-in, of course. And that is one of the things we ran into. Actually, this year we attempted to do a domestic tour in March, one of our winter adventures, and I believe it was only 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks before we finally had found some Canadian clientele that were in our demographics, i.e. had the financial wherewithal to spend the sort of money it takes to do a trip like ours. 3 weeks before they arrive, the borders closed.
Thank you very much. I don't mean to cut you off. It's my time is limited, though. The reason I'm asking, sir, is I look at a country like Australia, which for various reasons the Australians have been able to keep infection rates quite low. And as a result, their economy is more open. Now, we do see a situation in Canada where vaccines administered are moving apace in impressive ways. We're second in the G20 on a regular basis, perhaps third today. It fluctuates between second and third, second or third on a daily basis in the G7. And by the end of June, it's quite dependable here that we will see the vast majority of Canadians, all those Canadians that want a vaccine, being given at least one dose. And that will provide plenty of protection, a great deal of protection. And of course, by the end of the summer, all Canadians who want to be fully vaccinated will be fully vaccinated. Deliveries continue, and we see 2 million doses arriving this week. My question for you, with all that in mind, is, you look at what the Australians have done to boost their tourism sector. They provided recently 800,000 airline tickets, the government did, at half price. And the result is that you've seen already Australian citizens take advantage and try and buy tickets to go to various destinations. Is something like that, I know you're saying 10% of your customer base is domestic, but still something like that, an outside of the box approach, something that could be considered to help tourist-based businesses like yours?
Yes, definitely. That would have a two-pronged relief or help for us, not only and also for our airlines, the local airlines that serve our industry and bring those clientele north, in our case, north of Winnipeg, up into remote communities. They operate on a very tight budget as well. And of course, their expenses are horrendously high compared to east-west routes, and so they would be able to fly more people to us at a reduced rate, which would certainly open a pipeline further for us.
Yeah, I'm thinking long term here, and that is useful. Mr. Cameron, I'll have to come back at another time. I think
we'll have to we'll have to, we're at a time. I'm not sure we'll go back to the first of the rotation. Ted, if you've got a couple of questions here, or Pat Kelly.
Sure. Yes, I'll go, Wayne. Ted here. Thanks again, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Reimer, my office was recently in touch with Senator Tina Smith's office. We're dealing with an issue with the Northwest Angle. They informed us that Canada is on a do not travel list. And we're in the company of countries like Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, whereas countries like China are a level 3, we were a level 4. And that's got to impact your business. Other countries around the world globally see us as not a safe destination. We hear the opposite in the media. We hear how terrible things are south of the border, but in reality, when they look at us, they find us to be a very troubling situation when it comes to our response to the pandemic and how we've dealt with it. We know that lockdowns and restrictions don't come. Recently, our House debated a motion calling on the government to produce a data-driven plan for reopening the economy. And in the recent budget that was presented, the Liberals say they have a plan for the safe reopening of our borders, but they don't provide any details. There's not any schedules in there or benchmarks or markers, or as our chair likes to call it, there's no hard stops as to when this economy will reopen. What are the things that need to happen? So my question to you is, how important is a plan to you that where there's transparency, where you know when you can restart your business?
That is absolutely critical to have that plan. And we, as I've said before, we tried to do something in March, just before opening. We were told the Manitoba border was closed. Our staff, we can't bring anything to our staff as far as a plan goes. One day it's this, one day it's that. We hear yes, maybe, no, partly, almost. We have nothing to go on, nothing solid that we can plan our business recovery on, or provide some help and stability to our staff.
I think too, it's important that the government establish some very important benchmarks like vaccination, penetration, infection rates, hospitalization rates, ICU occupancy. What are going to be the benchmarks to open our economy? And I'm asking that from my provincial counterparts, but I'm also asking that from the federal government. Give us a plan, give us some real hard stops, some real benchmarks that we know we can plan our businesses to kickstart the economy. Businesses like yours that need to plan well in advance, need to maintain employees. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Okay, then we'll move on, and the last questions will go to Ms. Zurowitz, and then we'll have to close off.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. How many minutes do I have?
You've got 5.
Okay, perfect. So thank you for that, and thanks to everyone for this really great conversation on a multitude of issues. I will start off with Mr. Acorn. Mr. Acorn. With Acorn Canada. I don't want to call you an acorn, Mr. Cameron. Anyways, we'll start off with you. You know, one of the things in my great riding of Davenport, which is downtown West Toronto, very working class community, they put these little signs on their lawns, and they've been asking me for years. They said, Julie, where is the federal government going to increase minimum wage till $15? So they've been very much lobbying for it. And I know that they've been delighted to see that it's been introduced into the budget 2021. So can you talk to how our announced $15 minimum federal minimum wage can help low-income Canadians?
Yeah, that's going to be a great benefit to them. It means that you know, they can afford to eat better, to live better, provide for their families. You kind of cut out there, so I didn't get what was introduced federally.
So I just talked about what we introduced. It was the $15 minimum wage in our federal budget. And I just wanted to sort of get your thoughts about, you know, how you think it's going to be helpful to low-income Canadians.
Well, I'm not versed on the subject in terms of who exactly will benefit from that, being that it's federal and not provincial legislation. So that I would have to refer you to our head office to answer that particular question. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay, Mr. Cameron.
But I think federally, if they're setting that standard, that definitely puts pressure on the provincial governments to follow suit.
That's great. So, Mr. Cameron, it's interesting. I was exactly going to say that. I think it's beyond just that people were happy that there's the federal minimum wage has gone to $15. It's, I think, also just the example that it's going to set for other provinces, and I think that was just as important for my residents as well. The other thing in my riding is there's a lot of changeover happening in my riding. So I have 43% of my population were people born in another country. And so as they're getting older, they're moving out, moving back with their families. And so we have a lot of young families that have moved in. And so we have, as part of our budget, introduced a national childcare program. We call it sort of the Early Learning and Childcare Plan. Can you talk about how a program like this serves to help low-income Canadians like single mothers, new Canadians, and young families?
Yeah, it's hard for a family to sustain itself on a single income, especially for low wage earners. And having childcare that's affordable and readily available is going to help them get to work and not have to pay out large sums for childcare, which is exorbitant rates. And less reliance on family and neighbors, and that's just gonna really help their situation.
Okay, thank you very much. The other question I have is, and I'm not, perhaps it could be for whether it's Mr. Wood or Mr. Reimer or anyone who wants to respond. One of the things that we've been hearing for the last few months as we've been doing this COVID study is there's been a big push for the federal government to invest in sort of a Destination Canada type program, which we have invested in our budget to a tune of $100 million to get Canadians to be traveling across the country, to be attending events here, to be sort of using tour operations like the one that you run, Mr. Reimer. And so can maybe you talk to the benefit of that program? Will that be helpful in terms of helping to restart your respective businesses or your respective industries? Who would like to respond to that?
I will just quickly. Yes, it would definitely be a huge benefit. Destination Canada has always been a strong supporter of our product and our particular tourism entities. And yes, we would like to see more of that. And we're very grateful for what Destination Canada is able to bring to us. And to see renewed Canadian interest in us, definitely huge for us.
Thank you.
Okay, we will have to just about end it there. I do have one question, and I guess to Mr. Reimer, and that is, in terms of, there's several things that has to happen, but number one, how do we get over the fear factor that's been established in Canada by governments at all levels and even by us as politicians in terms of the political stands that end up happening due to politics? I'll give you an example. I co-chair what's called the Canada-US Interparliamentary Group, and a congressman from New York and I co-chairs from the US side. We put out about a month and a half ago a request, a little pressure on each of our governments to lay out a plan on how that U.S. border would open. And basically all we're saying, there needs to be the criteria laid out on what would have to happen, and it could change as time went on, given certain circumstances, but the criteria had to be laid out for under what conditions the border would open under. I did warn my staff here that you can expect the phones to light up tomorrow morning and people are going to be giving me hell. Well, they sure did. They really did light up. Did get some calls saying that, yes, that was the right way to go. But what it really showed me is there is a fear factor out there that is it in itself is going to make it difficult for political decision makers to open up the economy the way that it should be opened up. Any suggestions on how we start to dampen down that? I know we had to encourage people to stay home. That was part of it. But now we're in a situation, how do we dampen that fear factor down so that we can get the border opened with US, other border opens? Any ideas? I guess it's to you, Mr. Raymer. But I can tell you my phone lit up.
Actually, I think there's a very quick solution to this, Wayne, and that is to force essentially people back to work. Turn off the tap from Ottawa, turn off the deluge, the tsunami of money that is pouring across this country into people's pockets. And as my buddy says, man is first and foremost an economic being. You take away his bucketfuls of money coming into his bank account, and he will suddenly wake up and decide it's time to get back to work, and it's time to open borders, and it's time to get back to what this country has been noted to be doing, and not just printing money and essentially just giving people the opportunity to not have to get their heads up out of the sand and get going again. I think that's essentially what needs to happen. That would really turn this around. Turn off the tap.
Okay, we're hearing lots of different viewpoints. That's for sure. Look, this has been the panel today was wide ranging right across the board. No question about that. Look, I thank on behalf of the committee each and every witness for your presentation. You're answering our questions, and we wish everybody much success as we continue to go down this road and hopefully get things turned around in a safe and beneficial way. So with that, thank you again, and meeting adjourned.